This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech. Vick Naresh wants to find out about belonging. Or does he?
Through his art, Vick does explore belonging, but also displacement and identity.
And today he will share his explorations into our society with us. Vick, welcome to Believe in People.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, I don't know if it's a long story or not, but first of all, how did your journey into the world of art begin?
Wow, that's a long one. I think I first realized I loved to paint when I was a kid. My mom was a single mom, and so she worked a lot of time in Mumbai. She worked long hours, and I was always after school. I was after school. I was in after school care, and I was in daycare. And I found myself. The earliest memories I have of myself as a kid are really of me drawing and painting. And I remember drawing cartoons when I was a kid to pass my time until she came pick me up from daycare. And I think that love of drawing just, it ballooned as I grew older, and I kept in touch with it through all my school years. In my school years, my art teacher noticed that I could draw and paint at an early age. And so she was fostering me. She fostered me by taking me in on the weekends and giving me, instructions. Now, the school week in Mumbai used to be from Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday they had the weekend off. And I would go into the teacher's studio office and ask her question about how to draw a tree or how to draw, an animal, and she'd sit there and kind of give me instruction. And so as I got into grade 3, 4, 5, I began participating in a lot of inter-school competitions. And that's when I happened to win a bunch. And as a kid, when you win something, you feel like you can do this, and it gives you a goal, it gives you inspiration. And I kind of kept that going all my life. And so at a very young age, I knew I was an artist. I used to paint and draw. And by my teens, I was making canvases in oil. I must note here that I was always self-taught. So I've never actually had any formal training in art. And it has come about by basically practicing the craft for a long time. So over the years, as I got into college and high school, I kept doing the competitions and kept doing art shows. And I approached galleries when I was 16 in Mumbai, the big ones. And some of them took me in and showed a couple of paintings. But I soon also realized that there was no, as a young individual in Mumbai, there was no financial recourse in the world of art for me at that point. So I had to switch gears and take a direction change into the world of design, where I could use my art. And computers had just come into Mumbai when I was 16, 17 years old. And I just learned to use, Photoshop 3.0 back in the day. The first couple of versions were out, and I was dabbling with computer graphics. And so I kind of switched my artistic intent from being an artist and transferred it into using graphics and, to make a living. As a single child, I found that was what I had to do in the future moving forward. And that's how I think I got into design. But at the same time, I've always kept my art working on the side. I've been working on my projects on the side for all these years. And that's just been, the story of just being in it for a long time, doing it for a long time, loving it a long time. And I found that I was most true to myself when I was painting. I was quiet. My mind was quiet. My mind is a very busy mind. My mind is always going 10,000 miles an hour. But when I'm drawing and painting, I find stillness and quietness.
Well, I have so many questions. And Vic, I want to ask you, what took you from, this is a pretty long journey from Mumbai to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, where you live now.
Oh, it's yeah. So I was doing a lot of work with churches and nonprofit organizations in Mumbai, trying to do graphics, doing print brochures, and so there was an opportunity that came for me to learn digital design and digital imaging and video production. So I actually came here on a 6-month scholarship to do video production, where I learned to do film and lights and makeup and all that stuff. And that's what got me to Toronto in Burlington. And then over the years, I got a job in Toronto, and I stayed back. And so that's how I've been in Hamilton. Met my partner in Toronto, and that's when I came to Hamilton for love.
Oh, wow.
Well, why else? Is there any other reason to go anywhere?
No, exactly.
I have to ask you a couple of questions about the themes of your artwork. You talk about in your biography looking into sort of a post-colonial world, and your art is very colorful, and we're going to post some links to it on after this podcast. But it's very colorful. There often seems to be sort of a person or persons inside that kind of mosaic of color that you create. What is the attachment to the other theme of post-colonialism and what have you that you have included into the art? How do we see that? Obviously, India was colonized. We must say we're speaking in North America. North America is a body of land that was also colonized. How do you see that?
Well, first of all, I love the word mosaic that you just used. I love that. I love the word mosaic because that's exactly what my work is. It's a mosaic of inferences. It's a mosaic of attachments. It's a mosaic of emotions that are all overlaid together on top of each other. Now, I grew up in India, and my ancestry in India is that of an Anglo-Indian. So my forefathers, my mom's side, were actually the colonizers that came to India. And when they married Indian women back in the day, they had grandkids, and that was a way for the British Empire to colonize the place and keep it intact, because then you had Indians who were half British and half Indian. And so when I grew up, through my years of growing up, I always never felt settled in either role. I didn't feel, because at home I always spoke English. I never spoke my national language, Hindi. I never spoke my regional language, which is Marathi. I always kept speaking. My mom's first maiden name is Dubier, and we spoke English at home as a mother tongue, as a first language. So when I was growing up, this was a challenge for me with my friends, because I always felt like I was on the outside looking in to these groups of friends who all spoke this language. And I spoke it too, but I also spoke a different language. So my interpretation of what they were saying was always filtered through it. And I found that stuck with me through my entire life. And that's where the part of post-colonial inferences comes into my work, where I am trying to establish where I fit within this world of color that's around me all the time. My inferences come from just the visual aspect of being in Bombay, being in India, the color that surrounded me, but also feeling distant from it and trying to establish a connection with that identity that I have not actually had. And so when I came to Canada, it was a different kind of effect, where it was the opposite, where I didn't feel I was Canadian enough or from Canada. I was Indian. And so now I was in an English-speaking country for the first time, but I had an accent, and so I spoke differently, and I had different influences. So again, I was in the same situation where I was trying to find myself and find my connections with what I know. Part of it is also growing up in a religious or a Christian family and having different values than those surrounding us. So all these inferences were imparted onto me because of my history with the empire coming in on India. And I feel I have to somehow in my work address that. So when you see figures in my work, they are basically a commentary on an individual surrounded by a metaphorical narrative that is trying to understand their place in the surroundings.
And Vic, okay, so you mentioned in your bio on your website, which we're going to share, as Kevin mentioned, but you mentioned particularly emphasis on themes of displacement. You mentioned belonging, identity. Do you feel, and I mean, this might be a stretch, but do you feel those who view your work feel maybe a little less alone, or because you understand the feeling, or am I reading too much into that?
I I'm not sure how people interpret my work. I make work just to establish a connection with myself, and I really have no business in understanding. I mean, not understanding, but I have no business in asking people to see my work a certain way. All I can do really as an artist is be honest with how I feel in the moment that I'm painting, and create something that helps me, resolves a memory for me that I have to go back to and resolve. And in that situation is where I find the word displacement or belonging comes in too, because I find there are things that I have gone through in my life from a young age that I have to still come to terms with. And I'm removed from the place of my birth. I'm in a country where I have my new home, yet I connect with both worlds. And so for me to go on in life in a peaceful, cohesive way, I really have to keep working on that connection and keeping it established, because I find that connection is where the source of my joy lies. That's what I paint for. I paint to keep that connection going. I paint to keep, those memories resolved, unresolved, or actually elaborate on those memories that I have.
Hmm. We've talked about how colorful your work is, and it really is colorful. But how do you juxtapose a world that is often dark and
Yeah.
kind of bleak? And I'm not talking about the Canadian weather here. How do you because the Canadian weather is wonderful, and I'm a huge fan of winter, and I think white is a great color, and snow. But I mean, we live in very bleak times, especially
Yeah.
now. Does that affect your artwork in any way?
It gets brighter and more colorful. I think
Wow.
that's my way of dealing with subjects that are tough to talk about. It's about dealing with subjects that are complex and dark, is to bring a viewer in with the color and the design, and then reveal what's happening inside of this mosaic of colors that you see, that you're drawn into. If a painting is dark, I find a painting is dark on the outset. It already establishes a wall between the viewer and the painting. A colorful, bright painting will draw you in to look at it, and then once you read the title, might reveal its identity to you as well. Just like we are, we have our masks on, we live colorful lives, and we go about our business every day. But sometimes we have stuff inside us that we have to also deal with, and it's not the best thing that we have to deal with. So colorful paintings for me are a way of first fighting against the dark forces, literally with color and brightness and shapes, to create joy, but also to talk about really serious topics through my work.
And Vic, where have your breaks come from? Where have you hit some luck?
Oh my goodness. Especially Hamilton has been just incredible for that. And the art community in Hamilton has been, just phenomenal in the way they've taken me in with arms open wide. I met you at the DVSA, that have been instrumental in having me, there for a show and an artist talk. And prior to that, I had a residency at the Hamilton Art Council for 6 months that saw my work, and they gave me a studio for, a whole swath of time where I could really. I never actually had a studio before that. I had a home studio. And so for me to go into a professional space in the cotton factory, which is, filled with artists, and engage with artists on a constant daily basis, and be in a space where, you feel like you can create finally. Because, at home, in the home studio that I had space for probably one painting at a time. And at the cotton factory, at the residency, I had space for 10 paintings at a time.
Mm.
So that, really gave me a lot of learning those 6 months. Before that, I remember the first break I got was a big one. And this this is the power of, artist-run centers. Now, there's a artist-run center called the Hamilton Artists Inc. on James Street North in Hamilton. And I've been a fan of that ever since I came to Hamilton. I've been going there to, kind of recharge my batteries, look at new art, and they have the most contemporary stuff, out there that was so good, was so engaging. So I'd go there all the time, and I'd look at art and get inspired and come back and paint and do my work and all that stuff and live the family life. But then once I had a chance to apply, I said, why don't I have a couple of paintings and I'll just apply, and see what they think about my work to get some evaluation on where I stand in the world of art. And I was okay with being rejected as always, no worries. But, interestingly enough, they came back and said, we love your work and we'd love to show your work. And that was a big break for me, for an artist who is self-taught, working from a home studio, to be recognized by a gallery that he goes to for inspiration was a huge moment for me. And that really put, batteries in my boombox, as you might say.
I don't want to dig too deep here, but you said, you would have accepted rejection.
Yeah.
But it almost sounds to me as if you spent a large part of your life seeking acceptance. When you talk about still being home in Mumbai, you couldn't fit in because you were neither or nor. You moved to Canada and you were now speaking English, but you still thought you were either or other. Canada, and the United States for that matter, is a country that is filled with people that are from here or from there or from over there. How is that? I mean, how do you confront that? How do you confront that as a person? I mean, we're talking about your art here, but how do you, and is that a powerful feeling? Is that something that you cannot get out of your head because it's going to be constant?
I think it's a power for sure. That's exactly that's the source of my inspiration most of the time, is my looking into situations. If I was always in the context of seeing what it is exactly as it is, I wouldn't have things to paint about. I think the reason I am able to paint about situations and about circumstances or the human condition from my perspective is because I have felt these feelings for a long time and I've carried them through my life, learning to live life with them and understand how I see things is different. Maybe it's the way I grew up. Maybe it's my English speaking background. Maybe it's my Anglo-Indian heritage. Maybe it's, maybe who knows, it's my self-taught life or it's the way I live my life. I don't know what it is, but I always find that it has been a source of power for me. At the same time, it's been a source of battle that I have to always, kind of find my space in a circumstance where I fit inside and how I can deal with people or how I can talk with people. It's gotten better over the years as I've gotten older. But when I was younger, I definitely felt the feeling of trying to always fit into places where I felt I didn't fit into.
Well, I wanted to say that, I asked a long-winded, rambling question, but I guess the real question was, do you struggle with who am I?
Yeah. I don't struggle with it. I'm looking for an answer.
You're inspired by it.
Yeah, I'm inspired by it. That is a big source of my inspiration is what do I think and how do I think this way and why do I think this way in the place I am? What is it that drives my thoughts in this particular tangent to create and to think about visually? I don't think about things, which is interesting. I don't think about things circumstantially. I think about them visually. I think about the color on the walls. I think about the curtains. I think about the couch. I think about the floor. I think about the fan on the roof that's spinning. So those are the inferences that I find I bring into my work. You'll see diamonds in my work. A lot of places you'll see these trapezoids, that come from a young age playing games that were table games. In India, it was pretty hot. You'd stay inside in the summer and play games. And so dealing with life like a maze or a game of chance is, I think, how I sometimes put it in my paintings. life is a game of chance, and I'm here today through probably just a game of chance. I could have been somewhere else, but I'm here. And so how do you navigate those squares on a game is how I put my paintings across.
Yeah. And Vic, I mean, speaking of where you are right here, right now, I know you have an incredibly supportive family. I mean, I had the opportunity of meeting your
Yeah, they're
amazing
amazing.
wife
Yeah.
at one of the openings at, as you said, DVSA, that's Dundas Valley School of Art. Okay, so for those of us who are not surrounded by supportive people in our lives, we're artists. What would you say to us who, need to create, not to give up, but we're not supported? What do you think about
You know,
commenting on
yeah.
that?
I'm a huge believer in people. I believe in, and that's why I love your name, Believe in People. I think it's so pertinent to how I feel about myself and how I feel about other people. I try and, inspire people. I try my best to kind of give them the thought that if I'm able to do this, I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I think it's definitely possible. And I think the key here is to create not for success. I think the key here is to create for yourself, to find resolution with your spirit. I think it's to create to make yourself happy most of all. I mean, you might get sidetracked by trying to create work to get a gallery or get a show or get sales, and that has been my motive through the whole thing is always create work to resolve internally, look inside, and create work for yourself. I mean, it might not be something that is, shareable to the world, but it's still yours. And keep doing that, and you keep creating, and you keep finding avenues to be inspired. If something upsets you, if something is challenging, you could write about it, or draw about it, or sing about it, and internalize that and resolve your memory with that situation. I think that's a powerful way of thinking about art in the first place, where it's not for consumption, it's for self-reflection, you know.
And of course, your answer to our very first question discussed your mentor when you were young in school, the school teacher who noticed your love of art and took you under her wing. As I try to recover from my colonialist question earlier about how do you fit in and whether or not you should fit in, and who cares whether you fit in or not? Let's put it that way. I just want to, and then I'm going to ask you the last question because I have that challenge today. One of my favorite quotes comes from Pierre Elliott Trudeau, by the way. And it says, uniformity is neither desirable nor possible in a country the size of Canada. We should not even be able to agree upon the kind of Canadian to choose as a model, let alone persuade most people to emulate it. I'll go down here a little bit further, and he continues, there is no such thing as a model or ideal Canadian. What could be more absurd than the concept of an all-Canadian boy or girl? A society which emphasizes uniformity is one which creates intolerance and hate. And he finishes by saying that in Canada, we must continue to cherish not the concepts of uniformity, but human values, compassion, love, and understanding. That sounds to me almost as if you read that at a very early age in your life. It's something that touched my heart when I was about a 14-year-old boy when he said it, and it does reverberate, and it should hopefully reverberate globally. Now, you kind of started to answer our last question earlier on, but I have to ask you, through your art, through who you are as a person, through your family, and through your journey, why do you believe in people?
You have to, because you just have to, because that's what's kept keeping us going through all of this, all these years. I think we have to look at belief not just, physically, but metaphorically or metaphysically, where you have a connection formed with people. If you look at the world just physically, things are just plain and simple. viewing the world in the eyes of something just beyond the present world, the visual world, is what we have to do. I think believing in people is forming a connection with them, is forming a intricate web around them, from your body or your soul into their soul, and you connect with them and they feel that. And so the way trees talk to each other below on the root system is how I visualize being in love with someone or believing in someone, having them feel my belief or feel my love, and that connection is established in a metaphysical realm, not in the physical realm. And I think that's empowering for people. I think that's empowering for me, because when I put out my love for someone or my belief for someone, I also feel empowered by their belief. And so that's a collective way of growing together as a forest of trees.
Roots.
I love that. And you connect with people visually. You really
Yes.
do. Yeah, you
Thank
really, Vic, we're so grateful for you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me
And
so much.
thanks for putting out your roots to us.
Thank you for having me again.
I'm inspired by what Vic shares with the world, and the fact that, and you mentioned this, Kevin, about his color, the fact that he copes through life by expressing color when we are at our darkest moments. And I appreciate that, because it changes the perspective and actually probably changes the disposition of how we move in the world. So Vic is a inspiring artist in my mind.
And he connects with other people. He puts out his roots, as he said himself, through his paintings, through his connection with color. And let's face it, we could all use a little bit of color in our lives. If you want to hear another conversation as inspiring as this one, and you want to continue down that road towards hope, then please subscribe to Believe in People, and we'll speak to you again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.